consideration.
We are live on Facebook and YouTube. This is the Going Broadway podcast. Thanks for joining us and hanging out with us. I am Alex. Cole is here. We are here. And one of these days I'm going to have to put together an outtakes. What's another word I'm looking for here? Just a
blooper reel.
Blooper, yeah, that's what I was trying to come up with. So I once again I hit the wrong soundbite button over here, so it sounded like we started out the show with Lord Alfred Hayes, but it's all good. Cole, what's happening?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. How's everyone's weekend? I know we usually kind of start off the show with talking about stories and whatnot, and we'll get there. But if you're watching us right now, thanks for hanging out with us again. Let us know how your weekend was. Mine was pretty uneventful. We got some stuff done around the house and had to get our garage cleaned out. Cole's telling me an interesting story, though. Why don't you share that with everyone listening?
So I was with some family this weekend, and one of my family members was like, hey, I don't really watch wrestling, but every Monday and Thursday I tune in for a little bit just to support and check it out and whatnot, and
which we appreciate.
And he goes, or his wife was like, oh, you do like a show? And he was like, yeah, it's about wrestling, and she goes, oh, you wrestle? And I was just kind of like, yeah, I wrestle. They even let me take my shirt off. And then she was that's when she knew that couldn't be true. So it was a very fun conversation for me.
Yeah. As of right now, neither Cole or myself will ever step in a wrestling ring.
Whoa. At least speak for yourself.
I wasn't finished. I said we will never step into a wrestling ring competitively.
Whoa. Speak for yourself.
Okay, well, I will never step into a wrestling ring competitively.
I'm still in my prime over here.
Yeah, I'm not. So I just want to shout out some people that are on the stream. Trevor, good morning. Mark, good morning. Who else we got? Thomas, good morning. My chat stream is being slow. Clayton, good morning. Hope all's well, safe, and healthy. Same for you. John, good morning. Travis, good morning. Mark, the professor, good morning. Steven says, what camera do you use for your streaming? We actually just use just basic webcams. I mean, we have some, I guess the brand is just pronounced Logitech. But yeah, we don't use anything, at least as far as cameras, we don't use anything fancy in here. So yeah, I mean, they're probably, I'm guessing, $40-$50 for a webcam at Best Buy, I'm guessing. Anything else? Anything else this weekend? Anybody out there have anything awesome that they did this weekend? Any fun vacations, getaways, whatever? I mean, there's not really.
If you're a football fan, we had the NFL draft this weekend. That was fun.
Yeah, Rick Steiner's son got drafted. Don't know if anyone saw that, but there's a ton of social media posts over the weekend that this guy has a parroting the Scott Steiner promo in TNA from a few years ago. He has like a 66 2/3 chance of succeeding in the NFL or something like that. 141 2/3% chance of winning. I don't know.
I would love to see what his videos looked like when they were like recruiting, like what his video package look like? Because if he could cut a promo during that.
I'll say this. I hope he sticks with the NFL and doesn't try to do the Gronk crossover garbage. And we don't even know if that's going to be a crossover or not. Mark says they were $40 or $50. Now with everyone working from home, webcams are over $100. I'm not going to get on that soapbox. I hate price gouging, but that's ridiculous. So, I was just checking something on my soundboard. It was doing something funky. I think we're good. Travis says, "Let's talk about the dream and his accusations." We'll get there. We're not gonna talk about it too long because again, this is a family friendly show and there isn't really much at all family friendly about that. We'll mention it, but we won't dwell on it too much. Clayton says just the NFL draft, but that's it. That's really all that's on. That's
It was just refreshing to feel like we're gonna get football.
yeah, and I don't doubt that we'll get it, but I'm still skeptical that if we have live crowds for anything, I mean, let's say, September rolls around, that's when the season starts. I'm betting that if we have NFL games and people are allowed to attend live, that they're going to do the whole 6-foot thing and just, one person or one family, for every, basically make sure if you're in an NFL stadium that somehow you are only selling tickets from the standpoint that no one is sitting closer than a few feet. So, William, good morning, buddy. All right, tell you what, let's actually talk about some wrestling here. I'll tell you what, let's just talk about the Velveteen Dream stuff real quick. And when I say real quick, I mean real quick. So if you haven't heard, there was some explicit messages and things like that Velveteen Dream allegedly was engaging in conversation and other matters with underage individuals. I've actually not heard any updates on this since the story came out on, was it Friday that this started?
It was early to the weekend.
The way I look at it is, and I'm not really, part of it is I'm not really partial to Velveteen Dream like a lot of other people are. I think he's good in the ring, but people are so big on him to the point where I almost feel like he's kind of overrated. But if this is all true, I mean, his career is over. And Mark, I just got Mark's comment. If the allegations are true, he's done. Yeah, 100% agreed. I mean, there's no coming back from this if this is true. I mean, look at what happened with Enzo. Look at what happened with there's somebody else I was thinking of. They were with WWE. They had the same kind of allegations or kind of similar situation. I can't think of who it was. If you're watching, help me out. Travis says another one came out yesterday. Travis, explain what you mean by that, because I don't. When you say another one came out yesterday, do you mean like another allegation came out, or another individual had the same issue? Anyway, I think he's done. If this is true, I think WWE just needs to. They better not try to sweep this under the rug and just not address it and hope it goes away. Mark says, I understood that in Enzo's case, the allegations weren't proven to be true. Correct. But by that point, the damage was already done. Enzo they'd already let him go before. I think sequentially in terms of how everything went down, Enzo was let go, and then the allegations were proven not to be true after the fact. Am I right on that?
I mean, there was more to why Enzo got released.
Well, for sure.
But
okay, Travis says a young lady stepped forward. I think she was 15. Yeah, he's done if this is proven to be true. William, good morning.
There's a lot of facts.
There's a ton of stuff.
There's a lot that is out there that just looks bad. I would venture to say he's done already. Whether or not things are taped and
well, they've got his voice recorded.
Recorded. That some of the pictures are pretty accurate as far as body scale. on a verified account. I get those things can be hacked, but
You can't hack somebody's voice.
come on.
So.
I mean, it just doesn't look good. And I would venture to say that even if he isn't completely done, he's going to be taken off TV for a while, just from the standpoint of how big this thing gets blown out of proportion.
Well, when you're looking at it, this is a crime.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, this is a legit crime. It's not like he just did something inappropriate and then the company is going to let him go. This is an enforceable crime. You know, it's not just a slap on the hand either. So I think if this is something that's been and I don't know if this was just something that happened one time or if this is something he's engaged in for a while. Regardless, though, assuming this is true, and it appears to be, I think he should be done. I mean, this is not excusable in any way, shape, or form. You can't justify it if you're Velveteen Dream, if you're WWE. Brandon says, surely if it was true, Vince would have made a statement, right? I hope you're being sarcastic.
I mean, yes and no. The WWE is like 50-50 on these kind of things. Like sometimes they like to get ahead of the curve and try to, beat everybody out and just go ahead and say, yeah, we're done with it. We don't have a tolerance for this, whatever. And then other times they're like, oh, well, it's not true. Clearly it was not true. It was fake. Everything was fake, So it's one of those things where I feel like right now WWE's like in that weird, awkward phase where they don't really know how they're going to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
It's still pretty fresh. But like I said, everything that I saw personally does not look good, especially when you have more than one person saying it.
Agreed. And Mark makes a good point. The problem with it is once you're accused, it's hard to drop the label. It's 100% true.
He already runs a very weird gimmick that could kind of incite that he would be weird like that.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help either. So even if he's not guilty, the gimmick has to change now. Like there's just so much that goes into his character that I don't know. There's a lot to it, and I would like to see where it goes because as of right now, it kind of seems like it's just like dead in the water. Like
yeah,
accusations been made. No one's really solidified that those accusations are true. But just from what you can see on the articles and things that are out there, the voice recordings, the pictures, the messages, the verified Instagram account.
Yeah.
It doesn't look good.
It's definitely incriminating. Mark makes a good point. It's also possible that WWE is waiting for all the facts to come out and not rush to make a judgment. And, I get that WWE is a high profile and publicly traded company. Again, we've said this before, they answer to stockholders and things like that. Anything like this would obviously affect stock prices. Anything big or small in WWE in some way, shape, or form affects the stock price. And so I get that they're not rushing to come out with a public statement. But my viewpoint on it is if they don't come out with something this week, one way or the other, even if it's just saying, we're still looking into the matter, then shame on WWE, in my opinion, because this is a big deal. That's why you have a public relations department to handle things like this.
Right.
You don't have a public relations individual. You have a public relations department. WWE has an entire department that deals with this kind of thing. William makes a good point. Is it NXT taped or has been? I think what William is saying is, if NXT has been taped, where do they go from here?
That was my point.
They're just going to have to edit and get him off TV. And
the problem is he's in a major storyline, and
he's in the major storyline.
And so this would be the only reason why I would say that it could be hacked, fake, whatever, is because he's in such a prominent storyline that there's people out there who are trying to tarnish or hurt his brand, his image, whatever. Because it seems like a lot of times when these guys get accused, it's usually at a highlight or a peak in their career. Even Enzo was at a high for the most part. He was, still in championship, line, as far as cruiserweight and being able to get on the mic and stuff. So I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. But I think I personally think there's too much out there to deny the fact that there is a issue. I don't know if it's as big as people, as it's been broadcasted out there, but I definitely think that maybe he initiated thinking she was older and then, whatever, but
well, and I've read that logic of thinking, let's say he engaged in activity with these individuals thinking that they were, that they were adults from an age standpoint. They were 18 years of age or older. That doesn't matter to me. If you are a high profile celebrity, I mean if you're in the entertainment business and you are in front of millions of viewers every week, you are a celebrity. If you're a celebrity that is doing this crap, I'm going to call it what it is. If you're doing this garbage, then you have no right to be in that prominent spotlight. If you can't, if your behavior doesn't reflect the position that you're in, you shouldn't be in that position. Plain and simple. I want to read some of these comments real quick. Lost my spot here. Yeah, Thomas says if it's true, he could be looking at jail time. William says I got to burn my shirt if it's true. Mark says I'm not in any way saying that Velveteen Dream is guilty or innocent. I'm just saying that allegations are out there. It will be sorted out through investigation. Yeah, and again, we're trying to paint the picture that he's not for sure guilty. We're trying to give him some benefit of the doubt. There's just a ton of stuff out there right now that it just, like Cole said, it doesn't look good at all. Travis said, I just want justice for either side, but it's multiple minors now. Mark, I agree. If he did it, he should lose his career in his freedom. I don't know about freedom, but I mean, he should go to jail. Brandon says that department must have gotten released. Yeah, I don't know. The public relations department, they might be doing the whole working remotely thing, and maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Trevor, we're going to talk about this in a second. He says I think shows go back live this week, or the one live, one taping schedule. Excuse me. Clayton says, yes, WWE needs to address something about this matter. I hope they edit the storyline with this. They're going to have to. I mean, they cannot have someone that is in a negative public spotlight that deals with, to be blunt, that deals with sexual matters with minors. Like, they're not going to put them on TV. If it's taped, they're going to edit the tape. They're going to shoot vignettes with Adam Cole. They'll probably put him in a different feud. Who knows? And this could be another thing we could talk about. Maybe this is the point where they just say, okay, we're going to drop the storyline. Adam Cole, we're going to bring you to Raw or SmackDown because, this storyline has gone to crap. So anyway.
Most definitely. I think they got to pull the storyline. I mean, regardless of true or not, with it being an allegation, I think you got to get him off TV right now until it's sorted out.
Agreed. And he should not be in any kind of prominent storyline. So, a couple other stories I wanted to bring up. Over the weekend, and we're going to kind of stick with some controversial stuff. So, Dustin Rhodes over the weekend, he posted he made a post on Facebook about, the coronavirus and the government shutdown, and there was controversy over it, and so he had to delete it. But basically what he said was, tell you what, I'll just read the quote. He said, the world needs to open back up and end this mass hysteria. We are not a socialist nation. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. If we go on any longer with this BS, our economy will be shot, and that's much harder to kickstart. And he says, hashtag end the shutdown. He went on to say, I mean, no doubt we have an epidemic on our hands and have sustained losses, which is sad, but we have to move on with our lives. Taking precautions is fine, but end the shutdown, please. I care about human life, guys. Don't go out. He says, don't go out if you have a compromised immune system, wear your masks, social distance, but still open up. I guess I've kind of said this before. Excuse me. Talking about coronavirus and I cough. the irony. The way I look at it is, so number one, and I'm gonna play Paul Heyman right now. I'm gonna play a little bit of a spoiler. Guys, don't be surprised if within the next month all 50 states put something in place to where if we go outside of our house, even if it's just to go for a walk with our families, that we're gonna have to put on masks. So we live in Illinois. They just put something in place where I think starting May 1st, where if you go to a grocery store or a gas station or where if you go inside a business that is still operating, you have to have a mask on. Don't be surprised if that's the case with all 50 states within a month from now, especially with with these other states that are slowly opening up. There's going to be rules put in place. There's going to be precautions that are made, and I foresee within a month everyone's going to have to wear masks, wear a mask. And we're not going to get too political on this topic, but I wanted to bring it up because it's getting to the point where a lot of people that are, again, in prominent roles, that are celebrities of sorts, are being very vocal about this thing one way or the other. Travis says it's for our safety. Mark says, Dustin isn't a policymaker. He's a citizen who gave his opinion. Everyone has an opinion on this topic. Yeah, 100% agreed. I mean, anybody that, whether you're a celebrity or whether you're, me or Cole, you're going to have an opinion on the matter. And I guess the way I look at it is I get why he shared it. I don't blame him for sharing it. I guess the issue I have is don't delete the post. I mean, even if you're taking backlash over it, you're going to have people that agree with you. You're going to have people that disagree with you. Cole and I say stuff on this podcast all the time that people agree or disagree with. And we're not going to retract it. We're not going to, we're not going to backtrack on it just because someone, because there's an outcry. I think all of us want stuff to go back to normal as soon and as quickly as possible. I mean, a lot of people are bored out of their minds. I mean, there's nothing, I shouldn't say nothing. There's not a whole lot that, we can tune into that's as entertaining as it would be if there were live crowds. We can't tune into baseball this time of year right now. It's obviously on hiatus. I don't know if hockey season's going to restart. Like we've said, the NFL season's kind of up in the air. Who knows? But I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was interesting that I think this was actually the second time, by the way. I forgot to mention this. This was the second time he had posted something on social media and then went back and deleted it. I want to say the first time was on Instagram, and that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But this was a more in-depth opinion sharing type post. So Brett says, PA, you need to wear a mask in a store, or Pennsylvania, you need to wear a mask in a store or work with a mask. Travis says, spoiler alert, my state is number 1 in new cases in the United States. I'm not going anywhere. Amazon has my back. Yeah, and that's the thing with Amazon. I mean, you can, if you have Amazon and you have Instacart for your groceries, you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to worry about putting on a mask. The thing I hate with Amazon, though, is if you have Prime, certain Prime items still take a week to get to your house now. It isn't the 2 or 3 days thing anymore. It's for essential items. I'm beginning to hate that word, but Travis says this is the same guy who came out and he would retire if he lost a match that was pre-taped. That was, it was just for storyline. I get why they do it. AEW is they're very good about trying to hype a match, even if it's, how do I phrase this? They're going to hype a match as best as they can because they don't have crowds. They're going to try as best they can to get viewers. Brandon says, I'm so bored I didn't even realize yesterday was Sunday.
Wait, yesterday was Sunday?
Yeah. Today's Monday.
Just kidding. It's a joke.
Yeah, I hope we get back. I hope we get back to normal as quickly as possible. I mean, my opinion on it is, I want people to be safe. I want people to realize that there is there is a pandemic out there. But at the same time, Dustin did make a good point that if we stay in isolation too long, it is going to hurt our economy worse. The longer that we stay with this, work from home if you can't, but if you can't work from home, then you can't work. It is going to hurt our economy. I mean, that's just plain and simple. That's not a political. That's not a political statement. That's just economics. That's basic business. If the economy doesn't get back to work in its entirety before this coronavirus thing hit, it will make it worse. Michael complimented on your shirt, Cole.
I appreciate it, my man.
So, let's switch gears here. So I read a story just this morning that Sami Zayn is quote unquote terrible to deal with backstage in WWE. So
that's like not known.
Well, hold on. So that's kind of been I don't want to say well known, but it's not a shocker. It's not a surprising statement. So he's the current Intercontinental Champion. He wasn't on SmackDown this week. He wasn't on SmackDown the prior week. Allegedly, he had tooth surgery or something like that, or some kind of oral surgery. But basically, that was the excuse that he wasn't on SmackDown the prior week. But according to, it doesn't say the source. According to whatever source, it says Sami has been a complete pain to the SmackDown team. It is unknown if he has any heat with management right now, but he quote unquote stirs up other members of the locker room, and he's always trying to cause trouble. And I read this and I'm thinking, is Sami Zayn trying to get himself fired? Because I don't know why else you would purposely try to stir stuff up backstage, if it's true.
He just strikes me as like a CM Punk kind of guy, though. Like, I think he just has his opinions. I think he has his way of how he sees the business and how he sees how things should be. And when things are not that, he's very vocal. He's very opinionated, and he's not very open to receive other opinions, other creative, he's very, this is what I want to do or what I think we should do. And it just seems like that's starting to become a theme in some of these guys who start to get prominent roles. Like Sami has always been that guy who shoulda, coulda, would've. Mm-hmm. And injuries played a role into that for sure. But I think he knows that he might have missed his mark. He might have missed his shot, and I think he's trying to create a new one. And that's really hard. That's really hard to do when the business doesn't see you as the guy anymore, or the business doesn't see you as a main. I mean, Daniel Bryan went through this. Mm-hmm. When you aren't looked at as somebody who can get over as the main guy, especially at Sami Zayn's body size, with Sami Zayn's limited moveset now due to the fact that he is high risk of getting re-injured. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of, they're kind of done with you. They keep Sami. I think Sami's there solely by the fact that he can work a mic.
Mm-hmm. 100% agreed.
And so it's one of those things where like you don't want to let the guy go because he could go on to AEW or some of these places and really just get over by being on the mic and putting on mediocre matches. But he has to be willing to take a mid-card or less kind of role in WWE, and I don't think he wants that. I think if he can stir up drama in the locker room, if he can stir up controversy, if he can try to find a way to do what CM Punk did, which CM Punk pretty much found a way to tick off management and become the number one guy at the same time. It was like unheard of almost, but...
Well, my thoughts on that are twofold. So as far as the comparison to CM Punk, so... agreed from the standpoint that whatever he's doing, he being Sami Zayn, is upsetting management. CM Punk did the same thing. But I believe as far as from a backstage standpoint, CM Punk didn't really interact with a whole lot of people, if anybody. I mean, it was maybe him and AJ Lee because, they're married now or they're married now, but I'm not sure what they're.
They were together.
They were together. I just didn't know if I don't know if they were married at that point. I mean,
No, they got married the day he got fired.
That's right. That's right. I mean, and then that's whether they're married or not is irrelevant. But besides that, I think CM Punk mostly kept to himself backstage, and it sounds like Sami Zayn is kind of being a lack of a better way of putting it, a drama king, and again, like the article said, stirring up stuff. Again, assuming it's true, we're kind of going off of a lot of times when we bring up a story, sometimes it's based on the wrestling tabloids, so to speak. I mean, it's not the tabloids, but you get what I'm saying. The other thing I was going to mention is credit to Sami Zayn for being able to still have a job based on the fact that he's good on a mic. I mean, he'd be a great mouthpiece for anybody in WWE, in AEW, Ring of Honor, wherever he goes. I'm just shocked that they have a belt on him at the moment because, like you said, I mean, he's limited in the ring, especially compared to how he was, 10 years ago in Ring of Honor. I mean, if you go back and watch any of his matches with, Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen at the time, he and Kevin Owens, or again, Kevin Steen, they had matches with the Young Bucks and they were some hard-hitting matches. But again, that's why he's limited now, just because of all those sick bumps that he took. And so
the other thing I don't understand about him specifically getting a belt is that it seemed like they decided to go one way with Braun with the Intercontinental Championship, and then like backtrack that plan for some reason. And he was just like the in-between guy to put it on until they could figure out what they wanted to do. Because my thing, it didn't really make sense to take the belt off Shinsuke, put it on Braun, and then have Sammy win it, a couple weeks later. Like it almost seemed like they were like, okay, we have something lined up for Braun as the Intercontinental Champion, and then it fell through. And so now it's like, okay, well, we got to put the belts on somebody else because we have no other storyline that we can run right now with Braun until we clear some of these other guys' storylines up. And so I think it was one of those things where a storyline fell through, something fell through, and they had to put the belt back on somebody. Well, it didn't make sense to put the belt back on Shinsuke. It doesn't make any sense to put it on Cesaro when you haven't used him right in his entire career. And now you put it on Sammy just because he's a mouthpiece. What I'm shocked is they haven't turned Shinsuke or Cesaro on him already for him kind of being the cocky, mouthpiece that obviously is now not looking out for them. He's looking out for himself.
Agreed. I'll read some comments real quick here. Yeah, William brings up Sammy also mentioned AEW during a promo once. I do remember that. For the record, I actually loved that. I thought that was pretty hilarious. Trevor says, I'm not a fan of him as a heel. Travis says, anyone here ever heard of Undertaker's Wrestling Court? And if so, what have you heard? That might be a good topic for another show. I've heard some things about it. There's an article that came out over the weekend about Howard Finkel, who unfortunately passed away about a week ago. He went to wrestling, their wrestling court, and I'm not going to go into specifics. It was kind of a heartbreaking read, especially since he just passed away. But I won't go into that. But that might be a good topic for another show. Mark says Punk was a loner and came to work. Sammy is very opinionated and will argue if he doesn't agree with something. He has also gotten heat from the things he has said about Trump. Trevor says, I forgot he was a champion. Mark says Wrestler's Court was/is a long-standing tradition for locker rooms to resolve issues. Travis also says, I seriously forgot Sammy had a belt. Lisa says, love your show, guys. Lisa, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Brandon, if you would have Shinsuke or Cesaro turn on him, which would you prefer?
Cesaro.
I agree. If they do a turn, do it with Cesaro
and let him win the belt.
And give him a chance to shine. I mean, you've got so many people in the business that say he's the most underrated and the most underutilized talent in any company.
He's one of the best wrestlers.
Agreed.
One of the best wrestlers that WWE has. And I think they know. What's crazy is I think they know that. I think they know he can wrestle, which is why he gets put in so many matches. They just never let him go over. And Part of it, he is not the best on the mic. I mean, he's done all right, but they could easily, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why you have a guy like Sami Zayn to put with him and just let him be the mouthpiece. Cesaro could be booked in so many ways. He can be booked as a face that finally gets his shot. He can be booked as this heel that
bring the Cesaro swing back. Fans loved that.
To me, you turn Cesaro on him, let him be the face in that feud. People will go nuts. Cesaro section will come right back, and I think he could get over to the point that he could even be in the main card picture. But you got to give the guy a shot. If someone's gonna win that belt out of that group, if someone turns, Shinsuke could always go back to being a main guy. They could push him. All it takes is to give him a push, and he could go right back into the main title picture. He's not hard to push. Cesaro's hard to push because they've never done it.
Agreed. And I think so. Wrestling, I feel like, is very cyclical in the sense that I feel like at least this is how it is with me. And if I'm the only one, maybe you guys will disagree with me on this, but kind of hear me out for a second. I feel like wrestling is cyclical in the sense that every few years, it feels like you really want somebody to be put in a main event spot, to be put in that spot that hasn't been there yet. And when they do, it's like, oh, this is amazing. This is the coolest thing ever. Case in point, if you guys remember back in, I want to say this was, and Mark, if you're watching, you can help me out with the year on this. But long story short, Triple H was WWF champion at the time. I want to say this was 99, or maybe it was 2000. Actually, it might have been later. It might have been 2001. Anyway, I'll get to the story, and then, Mark, you can tell me what the year was. So Triple H was champion at the time, and then Chris Jericho, who was a face in WWF at the time, comes out and challenges him for a match to start off a Raw show. Fast forward, and this is whenever they had the whole McMahon-Helmsley regime thing, and they were very... they had Earl Hebner. He was very much against them, and anyway, Earl Hebner comes out for the match to finish refereeing the match when Mike Chioda gets pushed down. Jericho hits him with the lion salt, gets a quick 3 count, and then it looks like Jericho becomes champion. If you go back and watch that YouTube video, that's one of the loudest pops to this day in wrestling. And I feel like we're at that same point now where, let's say you put somebody in that main event spot, and fast forward to October of later this year, November maybe, I don't know, whenever we start having fans again. Let's say you kind of recreate that scenario where, let's just use Cesaro as an example. If you put him in a main event spot and he goes against a heel WWE or Universal Champion and you put the belt on him, you might get that same kind of reaction. I don't know. I'm kind of
People like an overcomer story though too. We got this with Kofi. I mean, Kofi was never supposed to be in the spot that he got with Kofi Mania. He was literally the filler for the match that he got over in. Kofi had been in the business for 10 years and had never been taken as serious as he should have been. And we probably got him late. How crazy would it have been to got Kofi when he was able to do a lot more of the stuff that he was doing?
Yeah, agreed. He's definitely, if you go back and watch some of his earlier stuff, and I don't know if this is at the direction of WWE or if this is because he's older and, needs to tone it down a little bit. Maybe it's both. I don't know. But he is definitely not. He is strayed away from doing so much aerial stuff. He does some now, every now and again. He'll still take a sick bump every now and again, whether it was intentional or not. Right. I don't know if you guys remember. Fairly recently, he took a really sick bump to the outside. I mean, was tossed over the top rope and just landed flat on his back on the floor.
Yeah, that was tough.
But
Mark said April 17th, 2000 was
2000. Okay. So it was 2000. But yeah, if you guys go back and watch that video on YouTube, that pop was insane. The pop that Kofi got at WrestleMania was nuts.
Even before it, like the entire build to his WrestleMania match, he was getting huge crowd reactions. Social media, I mean, social media wasn't a thing with that Chris Jericho Triple H feud as much, but social media was blowing up about Kofi Kingston. You know, so it's one of those things where, like, with the right booking, with the right scenario, Cesaro gets that huge pop if he gets just put over for once.
Agreed. And Travis brings up another good one. Eddie Guerrero, whenever he beat Lesnar for the title. I mean, you probably got someone, and I went back to the Jericho example because that was really the first example I can think of that, like, it was somebody that primarily was kind of on the mid card, but then they put him in a title match, and it was like, oh, okay, well, if he wins, you know, that would be super amazing, but it's not going to happen. And then when he did, it was like, oh, holy crap.
Right.
But you've got Jericho. Eddie was another one. I popped whenever Benoit beat Sid Vicious in WCW for the title. Now, at that point, that was whenever you kind of had the wrestling dirt sheets that started to kind of come around, and you also had like the wrestling hotlines that were still out there, and it was fairly known that Benoit was on his way out the door, but they, you know, put the belt on him in hopes that he would stay. But you had when Benoit won the title from Triple H and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, you had, again, Guerrero's match. I
would even say Daniel Bryan's first.
Daniel Bryan, when he
title.
when he beat Cena at SummerSlam, that was unexpected because you hadn't. That was the first time you saw that running knee as a finisher. Whenever he hit that running knee and then he got the 3 count, we're just like, wow,
right.
Like he just beat John Cena. And anyway, the point I'm getting to is I feel like we've kind of hit that mark where it's like every 2 or 3 years, it's like we really want someone to be put in that spot. And I feel like the build with this is kind of bringing it back home. This is what I'm getting to. I feel like Drew McIntyre has just been built so much that even though this is his first world title run, you knew it was coming. With all these other guys, it was just like I said, if they win this match, that would be amazing, but it's not going to happen. Jericho, Eddie, Benoit, Daniel Bryan, Kofi, all those examples of guys, at least in my mind, I'm thinking, this would be awesome, but they're probably not going to win. WWE's not going to pull the trigger on it, and they did. With McIntyre, it's like there's this huge build, and you knew it was coming. With Cesaro, in this particular example, if they kind of just threw him in the title picture, that would be nuts. And another good example, although it was a heel reaction, was Jinder Mahal. And, you know, it was... in hindsight at the time, it was just like, man, this really... I didn't like it. But I should say at that point I didn't like it. But in hindsight, that was one of those, you know, McMahon did it because of, you know, their the whole deal they had with India, and they were going to do live events. I don't even know if that panned out. I don't think they ended up going to India or whatever whenever he was champion. So I don't know the ins and outs of that. But it was somebody new. And in hindsight, it's one of those things where WWE pulled a shocker or, you know, pulled a surprise or a swerve, and it was kind of, looking back on it, it was kind of refreshing. So I think they're at a point where they need to do that again. They need to try to stir things up. Just some comments real quick. Travis says one of my biggest pops ever was Eddie. Clayton says Kofi as well. Travis says Benoit's first win. Travis also says for only $3.99 a minute, you can talk to Shawn Michaels. The hotline days. Travis says when Cena showed up at Rumble. Yeah, I'm talking just title change surprises, not surprises in general.
Yeah, like we're not talking just big pops. We're talking about like when somebody who wasn't really the favored pick to win, but probably deserved a run.
Yeah, here's another good example, and Brandon, I'll get to his question in a second. He says, do you guys think Cesaro could beat McIntyre for the WWE Championship? I'll get there in a second. Another good example is when you had Stone Cold and Triple H, they were that was their 2-man power trip. storyline, and they were, I think they had all the titles at the time. They had the WWF Intercontinental and Tag Team titles, so they were going up against Jericho and Benoit for the tag titles. And I thought about this after Williams' comment, because he says Trips' return to Madison Square Garden after tearing a quad. So he tore his quad in this match. No one expected Benoit or Jericho to win the tag titles that night, but they did. So that was another kind of a shocking, really putting guys over for a belt that at that point in time, you didn't have a dozen titles or a dozen championships in WWF. You had those three. I don't know if they had the European at that point anymore. They might have, but really, and I think they had the hardcore title. But this was at a point where those are the three titles. Those are the ones that mattered. And whenever Jericho and Benoit won the tag titles that night, that was another kind of a surprise, like, wow, this is amazing. Now, granted, anything during the Attitude Era, if you put anybody over Triple H as a heel, Austin as a heel, fans went for it. It was just a given. William makes a good point. Sting's first over Flair, even though it was the direction, but then you didn't. So basically, what William's saying: so Great American Bash 1990, Sting beat Flair for the title, and I would have been 5 years old at the time, so I don't remember enough to recall whether or not that if it was a big build and it was really foreshadowed that Sting was going to win. But that's still a probably good example. If you guys were old enough to remember whether or not it was, I mean, I've gone back and watched the video numerous times. It got a huge pop from the live crowd, and that's obviously, if you're WWE now, if you're any wrestling company now, that's your goal. Clayton says break through the glass ceiling for Benoit and Jericho. Yeah, 100% agree. So back to Brandon's question, and then we'll kind of put a bow on this topic. He says, do you guys think Cesaro could beat McIntyre for the WWE title? I don't think WWE would do that, and I think, kind of adding to my thought, I think it only works to put a belt on Cesaro if he's going over a heel champion.
Yeah, so like my thoughts would be, you got to book it right, and you don't book Cesaro, who's not had a huge push ever, against someone who's getting the biggest push of their career. McIntyre's going to lose to somebody in a very heated rivalry. I mean, it's going to be something that's crazy. Everyone's already saying that Seth Rollins is going to beat him at Money in the Bank. If you think that's true, you're crazy. They're not ending his title run that quick.
I don't think they are, but I mean, it's WWE.
We've seen swerves before, but I honestly think
that's not a swerve. That's just stupid logic.
My thing is that Seth Rollins to me seems like a good filler for Money in the Bank's card with everything that's going on. They're running limited roster.
Right.
They really have nothing for him. I mean, Buddy Murphy's, they kind of called him a disciple on TV the other night, but they're not really together right now.
Mm-hmm.
AOP's off TV right now. So it's kind of like, what do we do with him? We haven't seen Kevin Owens since he won at Mania. So it's like, who do we put heel-wise against this? I told you that I initially had read that Jinder Mahal was lined up specifically by Drew McIntyre to be his first opponent, just to kind of get him some heat. Plus, he got to work with a guy that he likes, that he has a background with. But ultimately, I just don't think you book Cesaro against somebody like that. Cesaro could win as a heel, but it would, again, you have to book him against the right guy. Cesaro against Braun Strowman in a few months could be believable if Cesaro was the heel. But again, it just has to be the right storyline. I would prefer to see him win in an underdog kind of overcomer story where he becomes a heel or becomes a face.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that storyline, he doesn't have to cut good promos.
Agreed.
Just being honest, like, he doesn't really have to cut good promos. It really, Drew. Let's be really honest. Drew McIntyre as a face hasn't cut very good promos. They've been decent at best. It's really just a thank you. I appreciate you guys, and I'm gonna win this for you kind of promo. And it's not over the top. It like his heel promos were.
Right.
It's just kind of, this is what it is. Thank you guys so much, and I appreciate you.
Agreed. Andrew says WCW crowds could be won over by work. WWE crowds can only be won over by personalities and pushes. Travis says when Foley won the title, even though WCW told me it was pre-recorded, I still switched channels and marked out. Yeah, Foley was another one. That was another good example of that unexpected title change, and I think that's why WCW tried to spoil it. But as we all know, that was really, and depending on who you talk to, depending on opinions, but that was a big catalyst for the beginning of the end of WCW. Andrew says if it goes to anyone, it'll be Brock because it always goes back to Brock. I hate to say it, I was thinking that when we were just talking about who Drew is eventually going to drop it to. Like it just happened way too many times, but it in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking they're going to bring back Lesnar. They're going to put the belt on him. Lesnar's going to be champion when he's 65. Joshua says, I don't mean to get off subject, but I wanted to say that I've subscribed to your show on here and your podcast plus is a cheap plug to check out my page on here. I appreciate it. Andrew says, Samoa Joe is one of the only guys they have on their roster who can make the wordy promos seem natural. Samoa Joe is somebody, and I won't get off on this rabbit trail. Samoa Joe is another one that I really feel like that if they kind of pushed him as this kind of like a Stone Cold-esque persona, but still as a face, like as this bad you-know-what character, but as a face, I think that could get over.
What I would actually love to see with him is let him go on a heel run as this submission freak, like just somebody who walks in.
Or that, yeah.
And it's just so ruthless, so aggravated that he's just choking everybody out. Let him get the belt. Let him submit some people. Let him have a decent main card title run. I mean, that really is the only thing he's missing to solidify his career with them. I mean, he's already solidified his career, but for WWE, the only thing he's missing is just a major title run for one last thing. Him.
It's just unfortunate. I don't know if they're going to put him in any kind of big title picture just because of his injury history and I mean of his, because of his age. I mean, how old is Samoa Joe? He's got to be in his. I mean, I don't know. He's in his 40s. 41. Yeah. So I don't know.
He's got the injuries too. So I mean, you gotta look out for him there. But
just the concussions.
That's why I said a submission run would be good because he doesn't have to do a whole lot of.
Yeah. Travis says, I don't think Brock, because of the financial impact, he gets a bonus for every appearance. I don't think McMahon really cares about the financial impact, at least. If coronavirus isn't a factor, I don't think he cares. I mean, he's probably making more money anytime Brock is there, to be quite honest, because people tune in to see Brock lose. Steven says, shout out to you guys. Love listening to you guys. We appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Wanted to mention one other story. Actually, just real quick. So two quick things. I won't get ahead of myself too much. So Vince McMahon reportedly sees big things in a new superstar. So if you guys remembered a few weeks ago, Sheamus had a squash match against an opponent named Cal Bloom, and we talked about this. He's actually the son of Wayne Bloom, formerly of the WWF Tag Team Beverly Brothers, also known on the AWA. There we go, as the Destruction Crew. But Vince McMahon and others have their eye on him. He looks to have a promising career ahead of him. The story says it could be much more in store for him in WWE. It is said that, quote unquote, everyone is looking at Cal Bloom like he is a younger version of Edge. He could use some training, but Cal Bloom is worth keeping an eye on, quote unquote. If that's the case, I really wish they would have let him do more in that match, but that was a complete squash match. I mean, Sheamus just was like, what, a 2-minute match? And this is what I don't understand. If you've got somebody that is an up-and-comer and on the rise, there are so many other guys that you could probably put in that squash match spot if they're just kind of lackluster at best. and you're just keeping them around specifically for that purpose. I mean, if you're going to have squash matches while this coronavirus is going on, don't put them in a squash match and then expect fans to forget about it later. That's the problem I have with just the logic of putting somebody in the squash type match, but then this article comes out, well, this could be the next Edge. And I get with the internet, more digital age, and there's video and things like that out there that but back in the day, you didn't have videos coming out of Edge being beaten in a squash match, at least not that I recall. I don't know. It's just a quick story. I wanted to bring it up, but it
just reminds me of like the Johnny Gargano stuff, like when he did his little squash match. Like they've done that. Dean Ambrose or John Moxley.
I know. I get that they've done it. It's just it doesn't.
I will say this: it is impressive that you can prove that you have potential by doing minor work. And that's what shocks me is that Vince obviously doesn't watch a whole lot of these up and coming guys because he hires people to do that. He's got guys who are talent searching and developing future talent. So he's not just staring down all these new guys. Right. He obviously saw something in the quick 2-minute match with Sheamus that was like, okay, this guy's good.
I don't know what he saw. I mean, it was Sheamus dominated the 2-minute match. I don't think he got any offense.
That's where I'm saying there's something special if you can take, and this is what make or breaks guys does, is when you're going to take the L and you have to look unbelievably terrible doing it, and you still find a way to impress somebody while doing that, that shows your ability to adjust, adapt, and still get over with the higher-ups. And I just think that's impressive in itself.
Well, I'm wondering if they saw potential in him before this match is kind of what I'm getting at.
I feel like the article didn't come out until after he had fought.
Well, no, it didn't. If they saw something in him, then, and I don't work for any kind of wrestling organization. I'm not a booker. I'm not a talent scouter. So whatever they saw, if it was in that match, then they do great work. So, some comments real quick. Adrian says, do Samoa Joe almost like Taz is running ECW when he was trying to get Sabu. I'm not as familiar with early ECW, but I do remember Taz kind of having that loose cannon kind of, and not to take, Brian Pillman's gimmick or whatever, but definitely I do recall that kind of that persona that Taz had. Travis says, this literally is the only podcast I watched live. Love the fact we are all average fans except Mark the bearded wrestling genius. Mark's an average fan too. He's just very knowledgeable. I mean, I like to think I'm somewhat knowledgeable as well, but I agree. We're all average fans. We're trying to have a good time, whether we agree, we disagree, and that's the reason we do this podcast. We want you guys to have just as much fun as we're having. Joshua says, I haven't had a chance to catch up on anything recent. I'm still working on stuff from past, so I don't even know what's going on as far as the current product. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, you're not missing much. Just my opinion. It's one of those things I feel like you could watch Money in the Bank. What is it, like 2 weeks from now? I think.
Yeah,
it's on the 10th. It's on the 10th. You can watch Money in the Bank 2 weeks from now, not necessarily know what's going on from a storyline standpoint, and still, pretty well be okay with it. At least with the matches that are on there right now. What do we got on here? We got Strowman and Wyatt. That's maybe one that has a little more backstory to it, but if you'd have to know the backstory if you've been watching WWE for a few years. Bayley and Tamina. You've got the 2 Money in the Bank matches. You've got Rollins and McIntyre. That's it, I think. I think that's all they've announced. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have tag matches, but I don't think they've announced anything else yet.
I mean, they're clearly setting up a tag feud with Street Profits and Garza and Theory, I think, still is kind of that. And then we talked before the show, we talked about the Lucha House Party, Miz and Morrison, New Day, and Forgotten Sons kind of storyline as well. So, I mean, yeah, it's
still in the works, but the point I'm making is if you've not been watching for a while, but you want to tune into Money in the Bank, or even if you watched WrestleMania but haven't watched anything else up to Money in the Bank, you'll be fine. Andrew says Wayne Bloom was sneaky good on the mic. I agree. If you go back and watch some of their stuff, Wayne Bloom was he was a good talker. He also says, look at Charlotte's debut, a 3-minute squash. I don't remember that. But, you know, help me out if you guys know who was her squash match against. I remember her wrestling. I remember her first match on the main roster was against Natalya, I believe, and she lost to Natalya, but I remember that being a good match. Andrew says they count on their fans not remembering stuff that happened a week ago. Yeah, that's how WWE is for sure. Travis says it's always bad when you're compared to a legend. Yeah, that's some big shoes to fill anytime you compare somebody to an Edge type. Joshua says, I've caught a few of the empty arena shows, and I think it's kind of interesting, not to mention different. Matthew says the problem with Vince is he still has the quote-unquote dudes have to be at least 6'2" and jacked for them to be good. Travis says, I think it's more at the PC during training. Let's see. Oh, Matthew, yeah. Matthew makes a good point. I forgot to bring this up. I'll bring this up shortly. I can't believe I still can't believe you had people who got mad about losing the belt giveaway contest. Yeah, I'll address that in a second. Eddie, my good friend Eddie, he says, can't believe the Luchas still have a job. Yeah, I'm surprised they're still there too, but what's ironic is that they're probably in the top 5 of the best workers that they have. Travis says tonight's Impact is going to be fire. I don't watch Impact. And honestly, I don't plan on watching Impact. I don't know. I'm not going to get on that topic. William says, for a future topic, can we do a drama pay-per-view AEW versus WWE? I thought the same thing over the weekend. And what sparked that thought is I saw something on one of the wrestling groups or somewhere on social media that I thought, man, that'd be an interesting show. So yeah, Trevor also says Impact is going to be tomorrow. I don't know maybe I should check out Impact if you guys are excited about it. I don't know what's on it. So
Impact's good. It's just it's inconsistent as far as storylines go. Like they have a really good storyline going, and then it's like it fades off for a while. They don't have consistency, in my opinion. But
yeah, Steven says I was always a fan back in the day. How Dolph Ziggler was brought up. He was kind of the quote unquote bad guy and underdog at the same time, in a way against Booker, if I remember right.
He's a show off.
Yeah,
I enjoyed his gimmick. His gimmick early on, and that they just dropped the ball with him.
They've dropped the ball numerous times with Dolph Ziggler.
Dolph Ziggler is great, and
I'd also put him in that top 5 of best workers.
He reminded me a lot of Shawn Michaels in a lot of ways.
Agreed.
And I still enjoy watching him because I always leave a hope that, like a Kofi Kingston hope, that maybe one day they'll get back on board with Dolph and run with him again. If the storyline was right, but he's great on the mic. He's fun to watch. He can put on an exciting, high energy match. When you can make Goldberg match look good,
in a 2-minute match, no less. The way he took that spear, took it like a champ.
He's great, and he's a true company guy. He takes the L's. It should have been me. He just finds a way to get things over, and I enjoy him.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. If Mark is saying Impact is a great alternative, maybe I need to start watching it. Hey, and you know what? It would give us more to talk to, or more to talk about. And we've been saying we're going to try to check out more than just WWE and AEW, so you know what? I might have to. Justin's here. Justin, how we doing? Congratulations to Justin, by the way. He was one of our belt giveaway winners. Again, I'll touch on that in just a second. William says, if WWE was a wide receiver, they would have been cut with all these drops. Agreed. Touche. Steven says he has so much wasted potential. It's so frustrating. Adrian says, I know everyone doesn't watch Impact, but do you think WWE could pull off what Impact did in having a woman be their main champion? No. And I don't think Impact is pulling it off well either. And that's me not watching it. We've talked about this on a prior show. I don't think you've got your men's championships or your men's titles and you got your women's titles. Keep them separate.
Even if they weren't to do that, WWE has better women too. Like as far as wrestling goes, they have women that are way better than Tessa Blanchard on their roster, and I'm still saying no because of the fact that it just doesn't make sense to do that when you have the women's belts and you have a strong women's division. WWE would be silly to go that route because they have a strong women's division. Build your women's division. You don't need to build your men's division with women. You need to build your women's division with women and your men's division with men. And so it's not a thing about equal rights. I'm all for pushing women's wrestling, but I don't want to do it within a category that she has to fight all men. I want to do it in a category where she can prove who she is the way wrestling has been for years. So I don't even think it's something they even need to dabble in. I think it's, we've seen like the Beth Phoenix in the men's Royal Rumble and Nia Jax and some of these people who have entered the men's Royal Rumble. And I think that's just for a pop, just to try to keep things kind of interesting. But
yeah, that was also pre the women's Royal Rumble too.
I also
no, it wasn't. So I retract my statement. Nia entered the men's Rumble when they did have a women's. So my apologies.
The Tessa Blanchard thing was a little different because Impact's just trying to find a way to be different, and I get that to the fullest extent. It didn't bother me when she won it, but I do think it makes their product a little lackluster when they have a women's championship, and they have a few decent women's wrestlers that they could be putting on a decent women's program.
I'd be curious to see what their women viewership is. I wonder if they did it because they have a women's demographic that they appeal to, but I just think that it falls flat. I mean, I don't care how good the product is. If you have a woman that is carrying a men's title, what does that tell the men that's on the Impact roster? I mean, Trevor says WWE doesn't have a woman like Tessa. I 100% disagree. I think if you put Tessa in, and I'm not discrediting Tessa Blanchard. I've seen her in the ring. She's good. But I can probably count at least 5 right off the bat that are better in the ring than Tessa Blanchard. And maybe 10. Tessa's good, but I mean,
I like Tessa, but
you've got Charlotte,
Becky.
This is in ring.
Sasha.
If you compare in ring, if you compare and combine in ring with mic skills, then you got Charlotte, Sasha. Becky had probably a tie, maybe. Charlotte and Sasha for sure. I just think
I honestly enjoy watching Bianca Belair more than I like watching Tessa.
Bianca's good. I mean, I was hesitating to say Io Shirai because she can't. I mean, I don't think she knows English. I don't think she talks on the mic. She is so good, though.
Asuka's a better wrestler than Tessa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can count 10, but 5 for sure. Even
I don't think Tenelli's better. Williams said Tenelli Dashwood's better than Tessa. I like Tenelli too, but she's not a better wrestler. She's a better personality.
Is it Tenelli or Tenille?
I've always heard it pronounced Tenelli. Either way, she's a better personality than Tessa, and maybe overall product as far as if you're looking to push somebody. But
yeah,
Tessa's fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. I like with Tessa Blanchard, and I've said this before. I think she should go to NXT, go in the women's division, work her way up, and I think she would be a good pickup. But I don't think currently she is better than the top 5 women in WWE.
And the fact of the matter is, I mean,
Lacey Evans.
We'll address the elephant in the room. Let's say she did go into NXT and then goes to the main roster and faces Charlotte Flair. It would be a dream match, but in part it would be a dream match because of the name factor.
Yeah.
As far as the actual build up, the in-ring work, it would be a good match, but I don't think it would be the caliber of, a 5-star match or close to it that, Charlotte has put on with others, or that Sasha and Bayley have had in NXT. That one match in particular tore the house down. which one was that? Sasha and Bailey, help me out here. Which NXT was that? Do you remember? If anybody is watching, then help me out. Trevor says I might be biased because I've seen Tessa at a local house show before all this and was blown away. Yeah, like I said, she's good in the ring, and anytime you've got somebody that competes on the indie scene, they're going to give you all they have at that show if they're trying to get to the next level. And I'm not saying that Tessa doesn't do that now, but now that she's kind of on a main stage, for anybody that's on a main stage, they're not going to go out there and take sick bumps like they do on the indies because they have a career that they have to look after now where they're making 6 or 7 figures.
It's also about push, though, too. It's about how your push is done and how you're built. Tessa has been pushed and built as if she is some major competitor in Impact, and I don't think that would work. You couldn't push her like that in NXT or WWE. Like, it wouldn't even be believable. She's so small, guys. Like, some of the storylines that she's done in Impact already have been unbelievable. Have been complete, and I'm not against unbelievable storylines either because we've seen the underdog stories and the David versus Goliath matches, but some of them are just completely unbelievable to the point that it's hard to watch because I know they're gonna put her over. And the second that they put her in a title match, I knew she was gonna win it.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, I mean, like you said, Tessa Blanchard is small. I bet she's not even 5'4", maybe, just a guess. Charlotte Flair, I bet's every bit of 6 feet tall, or 5'10", 5'11".
She's tall.
So I don't know. I want to read some comments real quick. I'm kind of getting behind on those. Steven says, I honestly thought that it felt like they were headed that way with Becky Lynch. No, I mean, they ran with the man gimmick, but I don't think they would ever put her in a title.
They were definitely trying to make her a face of the company because they were pushing the women's division hard, but I don't think they were going for her to win a men's belt.
Yeah, and Matthew makes a good point that I was going to mention. I got sidetracked, but why have a knockouts champion if they're going to have a female hold the top title? 100% agree. Travis says, I'm burnt out on Becky. Matthew says, WWE needs to push some other women, though. Everyone is so sick of Becky, Bailey, and Sasha. I agree. I've gotten sour on Becky, but I am intrigued by this Bailey Sasha tease.
I'm sick of Bailey as champion.
Agreed.
And I'm sick of Becky as champion. I'm not sick of them because I like them. But you do got to rotate that around a little bit more, I think, than they have. Sasha, I want to see as champion. So I agree. I can agree that I'm sick of them.
And she hasn't been champion for so long that it would feel fresh.
Yeah. Especially with we have never gotten the Bailey Sasha storyline that we were wanting almost 2 years ago, a year, 2.
Yeah.
So
Matthew says, is Tessa even better than Jordan Grace or Taya Valkyrie
or Jessica?
Jessica Havoc. Jessica Havoc, I haven't seen enough.
Taya's good.
Taya's good, but I still think Tessa's better than all of those.
I think Tessa's the best overall personality on Impact as far as women go. I like Jordan Grace in the ring. She probably has.
Jordan Grace is huge, though.
I think she has. If she's not already, she has the potential to be better than Tessa in the ring.
Isn't Jordan Grace a bodybuilder?
I'm not for sure of her background, but I hadn't seen enough of her until she won the belt. And then I started watching some matches, and I was like, you know what? I enjoy watching Jordan Grace. I think her matches and her ability is up there. I don't know if she's a better overall personality. Her promos are pretty weak, in my opinion. Jessica Havoc is fun to watch because she's got a lot of creativity to her gimmick, and there's a lot you can do with it. But as far as in ring goes, Tessa Blanchard is probably their best overall woman on their roster right now.
I have to agree. William says, have Tully and Rick at ringside if they wrestle. Yeah, that'd be phenomenal. But Tully works for AEW, so I don't see that happening. Okay, yeah, it was NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2015. Thanks, guys. Trevor says, give Lacey the belt. I agree. I mean, Lacey Evans is overdue for a title run. I would say within a year she'll have it. Matthew says, I'm talking about in-ring. Jessica Havoc can go in the ring. I've not seen her enough, but I don't know.
She is fun to watch. I just don't know. She's a little one-sided for me. I think Tessa has a little bit more of an overall
Her skill set from top to bottom is better, in my opinion. I want to speed this up a little bit. It's already 10:15. Man, we've been talking about stories for an hour and 15 minutes. All right, last one. So I read an interesting story that so Lance Archer was recently on Busted Open Radio and said he wants a match with Pac. He says, just based on the guys I've worked with in the past and thinking about those kind of things, Pac is one of those guys I want to face. He's one of those guys that I think he brings the strong style that I like to bring myself. You have the dual dynamic of the monster and the high flyer. The guy that can do all these amazing, cool, crazy things, but he brings that flight. I would really enjoy this, but you'd obviously have to turn one of them face. So here's why I bring this up. If you have Lance Archer and Pac, and if you watch us, you guys know we like to play fantasy booker. So we're going to do that real quick. We've actually done that a little bit on the show already. If you turn one of them face, who would it be?
Neither.
I mean,
Pac. You almost can't turn Pac face just because his gimmick literally is a heel. Like there's no such gimmick. I think with no such storyline with him where his gimmick works as a face, unless you're running him as like that kind of Randy Orton, I guess is the best way I could put it, kind of face where he still just gives no craps and doesn't really cater to the fans, but just kind of does what he wants and the fans cheer it, which is really hard to get fans to do unless it's the right storyline. Lance Archer, you could probably make a face if you were to have him turn on Jake. But it's just hard to do. You might get the opposite reaction with fans because everyone likes Jake. You know? Like, so I don't know. I don't see Lance Archer as a face. I don't see. It's hard to see either one of them as faces.
I think if they're gonna do it and they turn either one of them face, it'd have to be like at least a year from now. Because you've just thrown in Pac with this Death Triangle faction, even though they haven't been able to do anything with it because all of them have not been on TV due to their location in the world, and they are not able to get on. They're not able to take flights to the U.S. So it was an interesting story. I wanted to bring it up, but I agree. I think that I almost think that if they were to go that route, it wouldn't really. I would see it having more of an impact, no pun intended, if one of them were a face in that match scenario, storyline, whatever. And I think we'll see it down the road. It's just hard to see either one of them as a face at this point.
I could almost get on board with a heel versus heel match, especially if it's kind of like this kind of cocky, arrogant storyline where like they're both like, I'm better than you. And you could even put a face in between them. Like if they were to be competing storyline for a title shot against a face, and it's kind of like the slow build to get to that title match or that face to get to that match. But I could almost see like a heel versus heel, like I'm better than you. No, you're not. I'm better than you. And kind of having like that kind of feud, and it could work to where neither one of them has to necessarily switch or tune over. And then you could let the fans decide who they're kind of rooting for in that match. I think most would root for Pac currently. If it's a year from now, who knows where Lance Archer goes as far as crowd, because we haven't seen him in front of a crowd yet. But currently, I think people would probably want more Pac to win that.
Yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic that it's really hard to put my finger on. So let's put it this way. You said that you could get into a heel versus heel match or storyline or whatever. I could get into it also, but I think the problem lies in the fact that I bet I'd venture to bet that most fans would not.
Right. Most need a protagonist and an antagonist, and I do like what Matt says. You could have Jake swerve Archer and then run with Pac. And that would be a way to get Archer over without.
But does that mean you'd pair Jake with the Death Triangle? To me, that it's like, is he going to be just with Pac? Would he be with the entire faction? I think you'd kind of.
Well, who's to say when this storyline happens that Death Triangle is even the thing anymore?
Right. Agreed.
As right now, it's not. They're not even on TV.
Yeah. Travis says, I need Vance versus Wardlow. Andrew says they need Jake with Archer. He's too tall to manage anyone else. All right. Thanks, guys, for your comments. We appreciate it. We really enjoy the conversation in all seriousness. Whether you agree or disagree, we try to read your guys' comments as often and as many as we can. So if you ever have any thoughts or suggestions or just questions for us that you want us to tackle, let us know. Some questions we might not tackle right off the bat. I see that there was one about bringing the four horsewomen back and dominating the women's division. Joshua, thank you for that question. I think that's a larger topic that we'd have to tackle another time. Matthew, got to run, fellas. Have a great day. You too, buddy. I appreciate you tuning in.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
And I did mean to do it that time. So thank you, Lord Alfred Hayes. I appreciate that. You can check out the Going Broadway podcast with new shows every week on Apple Podcasts, as well as Google Podcasts, and a number of other platforms where you can access your podcasting. For those of you watching us live right now, each of our shows are archived. You can go back and watch any one of them on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. Below our handsome faces on your screens, you can see the links below. So we've got our YouTube link down here. We've got our Facebook link right over there. And then below Cole, we've got our Twitter handle. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, goingbroadwaypodcast.com/YouTube. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/goingbroadwaypodcast. Follow us on Twitter at goingbrdwipod. We also have an Instagram page. Follow us on there as well. Also at goingbrdwipod on Instagram. We will be doing future giveaways, as I mentioned on our Facebook page. Once we hit 500 Twitter follows, we're going to do a T-shirt giveaway. We'll also do another T-shirt giveaway once we hit 300 subscribers on YouTube. So like, follow, and subscribe to all of our platforms, please. You can also download our free app. It's called Yo Radio. It can also be downloaded through the App Store or Google Play. Yo Radio is the most advanced, user-driven streaming radio service on the market today. Everything you'd expect and more from the most full-featured platforms ever developed. You can listen to an endless genre of music, podcasting, including our show via the Lineup channel, sports news, and more 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's always 100% free. Again, that's Yo Radio, available via the App Store, Google Play, or by visiting yoradio.com. You can also check us out through our web host at lineupmedia.fm. I did have a question over the weekend about some of our podcasts on Apple and Google Podcasts. With this coronavirus going on, if you want access to our most recent podcast, it's probably best to check out Facebook and YouTube. We've got a little bit of a delay getting them uploaded to Apple and Google Podcasts. So if you want a more recent show to listen to or check out, Facebook and YouTube are going to be your way to go. So, Clayton, I appreciate it. We're not ending the show yet, guys. Just if you still want to hang out with us, we'll be around for probably another 20 or 30 minutes. So, and real quick, I wanted to address our belt giveaway and really our giveaways in general. So, first off, congratulations to Anthony Turbocast. He was our first winner, and I'm trying to think which one he picked. So Anthony picked the big gold belt. Mark Maggard was our second winner. He went with the NWA World Tag Belt. And Justin Del Rio, he won our NWA Domed Globe. The first two were shipped out last week, so you should be receiving them either today or tomorrow. Justin will be receiving his Domed Globe once it is finished in about a month and a half or so. And as far as our giveaways in general, I posted on our page yesterday. I did a video from home if you watched it. Basically, we had someone get upset over the weekend that they haven't won anything in our giveaways, and then they proceeded to accuse us of trying to obtain their bank information or request their bank information. just to reiterate something I said in our video yesterday, we would never do that, and we have never done that. The only personal information we would ever request from you is if you want a giveaway, we would need your mailing address, but that's it. And we would never share that information with anybody. So just wanted to address that. And thanks to William Gravely, who has assisted us in resolving that issue, because he posted in one of the groups that I'm in that we attempted to request his bank information. Again, that is 100% not true. So I just wanted to address that, guys. And again, congrats to our belt winners. So for the rest of the show, I want to turn it over to Cole, because again, he presented an interesting topic that we'll tackle for the next 20-ish minutes or so. And we're going to kind of compare and contrast some of our favorite wrestlers that have made some changes and alterations to their characters, their personas, especially if they've jumped from WWE to AEW or Ring of Honor to WWE, New Japan to WWE, things like that. So tell you what, I'm just going to turn the floor over to Cole. And guys, if you're still watching, whenever we go through these, let us know your opinions and we'll try to read your comments. So Cole, take it away.
So I messaged Alex the other day, and I was just kind of like, we could talk about some of these guys' gimmicks from one company to the next, and kind of break down what changed, what happened, and what did you like more? Who kind of pick a winner maybe out of the two, or who you favor, which character or gimmick you favor more as far as overall gimmick. So like, we'll start with like the major one. Let's just talk about the one that sticks out, which is Chris Jericho.
Yeah, I was going to say, as we go through these, probably go in order of who we want to most tackle, because we probably won't be able to get to all of them.
Right.
But
we went with a lot just in case we could get to them. So, so Chris Jericho, WWE versus Chris Jericho. You could say AEW, but if you want to throw maybe his New Japan career in there as well. He was the one that I looked up a lot of info about just to make sure I didn't forget anything.
Right.
But Chris Jericho in WWE, first off, his finishers were different. The one thing that stuck out to me that was different is Chris Jericho was hitting the code breaker to win most of his matches later on in his career in WWE, and we hardly ever saw the Walls of Jericho used to win matches on his way out of WWE.
Right.
And then the Lion Salt was pretty much not even a thing at that point in time. You go back to his early, WWF, he was using more Walls of Jericho, Lion Salt, and the Code Breaker. I don't even think was in his arsenal. So then you fast forward and you look at Chris Jericho, AEW, and we're seeing the Judas Effect. And we still don't really see the Walls of Jericho used to win matches. He might pull it out every once in a while, but it's more the Judas Effect that he uses. In WWE, his theme song to me was probably one of the more iconic WWE songs or WWF even, that you remember. I just remember the lights dropping, the light up jacket. Like everyone would shout, "Break the walls down," and people would go nuts. And so that music's iconic. But then you look at AEW and the amount of people that sing his theme song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this dude's had two iconic, really, theme songs that fans just give a pop over. So I looked at that, and then I just kind of looked at overall accomplishments. Chris Jericho, I don't think people realize that he holds the record for the most intercontinental championships in WWF/E with 9. I've seen a lot of debates in different wrestling groups where people are talking about The Miz being the best intercontinental champion of all time. Until he outdoes Chris Jericho's record at 9, I don't think that's a conversation you can have. Chris Jericho holds 9 overall. He was the first ever undisputed champion, several tag team runs, whatever. And then I started to kind of think about feuds. What feuds did he have in WWF versus /E and then outside of it? he had the feud with The Rock, which was huge. His later feuds, Kevin Owens and CM Punk, were kind of his most prominent that we'll probably remember more recently,
Right.
in WWE. And then you look at his feuds outside of it, and he's had Cody, he's had Moxley, he's had some with Hangman, just kind of the elite in general, that have been enjoyable. But the thing that I think stands out for me and what really made my decision clear was the creative power that he has between the two companies. I feel like in WWE, he didn't have a lot of creative power as far as where storylines went and gimmick, but he had a lot of creative power how he could get those things over. Where in AEW, I think he has a ton of creative power on where his gimmick goes.
Agreed.
And I've enjoyed even the Bubbly Bunch here recently has been fun to watch. The different, I got a ticket, the little bit of the bubbly, like just about anything he says turns gold in
Even
AEW.
on commentary with Shivani.
Just has been killing it. So, my opinion is that on this guy, Le Champion wins. I don't know about you. It's hard because he has such a great career in WWF/E as well, just with a lot of the things he's done to say that. But I feel like what he's doing now, I wish I would have saw this earlier.
I just think that he's reinvented himself so many times, and each time it's worked. Each time it's gotten over with fans, regardless of who he's being paired with, whatever faction he's in, if he's alone, regardless of whatever, I don't know if I said this already, whatever company he works for, if it's WWE, AEW, New Japan. I mean, WWE, he had everything from the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, and he had the he had his heel runs. He didn't really have a persona so much, but at least not that I recall. But he had he had the list. He had the Festival of Friends, Jericho whenever he tagged with Big Show, and then of course he's got Le Champion, Bubbly Bunch. I've got a ticket. That whole. Any kind of slogan, like he's got that flim flam thing that he just filed a patent for.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens with that. His Painmaker gimmick in New Japan. I mean, he's just every time he's gone through a transition, and each time it's worked. I mean, let's face it, guys. The guy has his own cruise. This whole thing with fans singing his theme song even after it has shut off, finishing the chorus of the song, that started on the cruise. And it carried over to Dynamite, to the live shows for at least a few weeks. And depending on where they were before we stopped having fans, there were crowds that were still doing it as recent as January, February, whenever we stopped having crowds. So
there was Sammy Guevara was still making fun with it, when there was no crowd, singing it for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure people that were watching it knew what it was
referencing to.
Just real quick, some of these comments. William mentions Chris also held the IWGP Intercontinental. Very true. Clayton says he's a master of reinvention. Trevor says 2 back-to-back feuds of the year. Right. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. It could. As far as feud of the year, it really
talks about it. He talks about it in one of his podcasts where they were actually, I want to say it was him and Kevin Owens, where their storyline was so over that they were supposed to be way higher up on the Mania card, and like last minute it got changed to where they were like the opener and their match got cut.
I'm not surprised.
And he talked about how disappointed he was with that decision. But his CM Punk, he even talks about Punk a lot and how he considers him a close friend, and talked about their gimmick and how he learned about what actually straight edge meant and things like that. Those two feuds were to me underrated. I think they were still better than what they were given credit for.
And this is neither here nor there. But as far as feud of the year, I mean, that depends on who you talk to. If it's PWI awards or Wrestling Observer awards or whatever. I mean, there's tons of awards out there. If you're looking for a formal feud of the year award or whatever, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I mean, any given year, you can say he had a feud of the year to some degree. So, Thomas says, I actually like this version of Jericho. He's getting older and he's adapting his character to that. Of course, I've always been a fan of Jericho. Trevor says, I'm reading his third book now. That's another thing. He writes books. I mean, it's like the guy is constantly
Dark
working.
Side of the Ring.
Yeah, constantly making himself. I don't want to say constantly putting himself in the spotlight, because I don't want it to sound like I'm putting a negative connotation to it, but he's got his hand in multiple things because he genuinely wants to entertain fans. He does a live Facebook and YouTube thing every Saturday now while this coronavirus stuff is going on. I think it's every Saturday.
Yeah.
So he's constantly just he cares about the fans, and I know he works as a heel. That's not what I'm getting at. I mean, it's a kayfabe work, guys. It's wrestling. He's a heel. We get it. But outside of that, like, he genuinely wants to entertain fans. That's what it comes down to. That's why he's willingly doing commentary with Shivani every week when he doesn't have to be. He's doing Dark Side of the Ring, like Cole said, when he doesn't have to be.
Dude's selling bubbly. I mean, like,
yeah, he sells a bottle of wine, and
everything he touches turns to gold.
Exactly.
It's just what it is.
Adrian says, loved it when Sammy G was singing the song. Trevor says Michaels and Ray feuds. Yeah. William. Yeah, he's got a podcast. I mean, it's like he does it all. Michael says Jericho has a future in commentary. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the dude can do anything he wants, and
to me, he's a Ric Flair.
I think he's even a step above Ric Flair.
The Inner Circle, I had my doubts when they first came out with it. He has found a way to get each and every one of those guys over.
Made each and every single one of them better. Jake Hager would not have been in an AEW title match if he was not in this Inner Circle faction.
Just phenomenal.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I would even say he's a step above Flair. Now, I'm not saying best of all time. I'm not saying that at all. Flair's won 16 world titles. I still think to this day, from a wrestling standpoint, he's the greatest. And if anyone ever tops that, then I don't know. But what I'm getting at is, when you combine an entire, I don't want to say entire line of work, but I'm just going to use that phrase for lack of a better way to term it. I think Jericho is a step above Flair, because I feel like some of the stuff Flair does just seems cheesy, like the rap video and some of these like dairy commercials he's done. And it's like, I don't know. It just seems like those things have been like a step below Flair, where Jericho would go into something like Dark Side of the Ring and make it better than it was the first season.
Right.
You know, again, the guy does a cruise, and he's done it a couple of them, with a third one that's being planned for next year. You know, granted, the coronavirus doesn't screw that up, but both of them have been successful, and he's had multiple wrestlers and wrestling talent on these cruises to wrestle, to do his podcasts, just to bring on his guests. I mean, what the guy does is insane. So, Michael says, could you imagine having a guy doing commentary and showing favor towards other wrestlers? Has that ever been done? I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I guess, like, the way I look at it is you usually have a heel commentator and a face commentator, and that's kind of that dynamic. I don't know if he's not really giving favor to anybody, but it's just, you know, he's playing a heel commentator. You know, he's going to favor the heels in the matches. Bobby Heenan did that for years. Hadrian says Jericho is the gift that keeps on giving, for real. Trevor says Flair never won the ECW TV title like Jericho did. Thomas says, I think the cruise would be a fun time. Yeah, I agree. Tell my wife that. I would love to go on the Jericho cruise. I don't know if my wife would ever go for it.
Just tell her cruise, and then don't say the other part.
No, that would not fly.
Oh man.
Trevor says I'm joking, by the way. Yeah, I know, but I mean, the ECW TV title was, you know, that was ECW's version of the Intercontinental title. That was the workers' title. Clayton says he started as a cruiserweight, started rock bands, podcast, writing books. He's pretty high up
I didn't
there.
even bring up his rock band.
Yeah.
I mean, dude's in everything. So for me, AEW or Le Champion would be
I agree.
where I go with Chris Jericho, just for what he's brought to the table in all facets.
Yeah. This might be a two-part conversation. We might address some of these in Thursday show as well, because I think we really only have time for one more.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the other elephant in the room. Dean Ambrose versus Jon Moxley. And the reason why I bring this one up is that I think I'm gonna have a very surprising answer compared to other people. But let's break it down real quick. So Dean Ambrose in WWE comes in with the Shield, probably one of the hottest factions in more recent years. I would probably put it in top 5 factions of all time. That's just me.
Possibly.
That just due to their popularity with the fan base. They were kind of my generation's probably NWO or DX, whatever you want to call it. They were the ones that when their music hit, you went nuts. Whether they were heel, whether they were face, it did not matter. They have gotten over. They've had great feuds. They all have gone on to be successful, all 3 of them, which says something about a faction too, is that when you can team up and be successful, and then when you can split, go be successful and come back, that tells you what they are. But with everything said, Dean Ambrose out of the 3 probably was the one that was harder to get over. Seth Rollins got the huge push after he turned on the Shield, and Roman Reigns was the big dog. You know, he was bigger than all of them, so he already had like the Vince McMahon build that he needed to get over. Dean Ambrose had to find a way to be creative. He had to find a way to get over. He had to find a way for fans to like him. He had title runs, both main card and mid card. I liked the whole crazy man gimmick, whatever you want to call it. Just the
lunatic
fringe gimmick. Entertaining. He was funny. Enough to be said there. Jon Moxley, he leaves WWE, comes out on the independent scene as Jon Moxley. He's getting the huge pops. He's bulked up. He's a little bit bigger now. He's won titles. AEW champion right now. It is what it is. You've seen it. So I'll let you let me know what you think first before I share my thoughts.
Real quick, I mean, and Mark kind of took the words out of my mouth. I'm picking Moxley because it just feels more real, feels more believable. And part of the reason is I'm probably one of the few people that was familiar with Jon Moxley before he was the Jon Moxley now, before he was Dean Ambrose. This was whenever he was on the independent scene, and he was known as this hard-hitting aggressor, hardcore wrestler. And he became watered down when he went to WWE. From that standpoint, that's why they tried to give him this lunatic fringe gimmick. But if you knew what he was like on the indies before WWE, you knew that this lunatic fringe was still not a comparison to how he was. Even the Jon Moxley now is not how he was compared to the independent circuit. But at the same time, like I've said before, if you're on the indies, you're going to work in the ring more stiff. You're going to do more eye-raising things to get noticed, so you can make that jump to WWE, so you can make that jump to AEW, or just to a product that's on TV is essentially what I'm saying. So just cutting to the chase, I think my pick is Jon Moxley.
So I'm going to go Dean Ambrose. And the reason why I say that is not because I was familiar with his death matches and his crazy stuff, and I'm all for that. And I actually would say that the best match I've ever seen him in personally was the Kenny Omega match. I loved that match. I thought it was great. But as far as overall, I enjoyed him more in WWE. I have felt like his promos in AEW have been lackluster. I have felt like his title run, maybe due to the coronavirus and things, has been lackluster due to that, but I have felt like his title run so far has been lackluster. I've even felt like most of the storylines he's just been in general, minus some of the things with Chris Jericho, which might be more credit to Chris Jericho than Moxley. I don't know. I have not been as entertained with Moxley in AEW as I was with him as Dean Ambrose in WWE. When Dean Ambrose was WWE champion, that was probably one of the highlight times that I actually was enjoying watching wrestling at its peak. I enjoyed the lunatic fringe gimmick. I enjoyed the kind of smaller guy who was just nuts, who came out at the ring with a beater on and just went crazy. I enjoyed his feuds with Seth Rollins. I enjoyed his feuds with the Shield, and even with him kind of coming back to the Shield and kind of having that internal whatever. I just enjoyed his storylines, I think, more in general in WWE, and so far I have not really enjoyed a storyline yet with him outside of WWE. I do wish his creativity would have been taken more serious in WWE than what they give him credit for, as I do think he's creative. I do think he has a lot of things to bring, and I wish things wouldn't have gone as sour as they did, but I enjoyed Dean Ambrose more than I think I have Jon Moxley. That doesn't mean that it won't get better. I love Jon Moxley still, but I think out of the two, I would have to go Dean Ambrose.
And that's fair. I mean, I agree from the storyline standpoint of him being AEW champion has been lackluster. But again, like you said, I think that has a lot to do with this whole coronavirus thing. There's not crowds.
Even his Hager match fell flat for me. His Jake Hager match,
it wasn't bad. It just felt long.
Even with the crowd, I felt like it was dry. The most exciting, I mean, especially when you come in and you have the match that you have with Kenny, and then everything else after that has been flat in a sense. I mean, even his Jericho match was flat. There's not been an exciting match since the Kenny match, and it's like that's you peaked there. You got to build from there, and
yeah,
I haven't seen that happen yet.
The thing with the Moxley Jericho match is I don't know how it came off live on TV, or I don't know how it came off on TV. I've not gone back and watched that match, but watching it live, it felt like it was a good match. But I get that sometimes it doesn't come across that way on TV. Live, it felt like it was pretty good. But I agree that the match with Kenny, easily, and it's not even close, was Moxley's best match to date with AEW. So, just some quick comments, and then we're going to have to wrap up this show. Mark says Moxley was the street dog. He was the next evolutionary step of what Brian Pillman could have become with the loose cannon. Trevor says camo on camo. Uh-oh. Mark says, Cole, I like you, but you are such a WWE fanboy. I'd love to come on the show sometime and have a friendly debate with you. We really want to start having guests on our show, and Mark, I do want to get that arranged. I want to have some guests on here. But speaking of guests, I do want to mention something real quick. So I might be working on something, and I've not even told Cole this. I'm not going to give away names, but I might be working on something pretty big as far as having a guest former wrestler on. I would call him a legend, in my opinion. It's something that's in the works, but if we have this person on, we probably would go to an alternate time. It might still be a Monday or a Thursday, but it might be a later in the afternoon kind of show, because I do want to kind of work with this person and their agent representation, whatever, to try to make that work. So I've reached out to them. I'm in communication with their, again, representation or what have you. So stay tuned on that. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about the prospect of it happening. Our setup might look a little different. We might not have our Going Broadway podcast logo and all the websites and links and stuff, because I think it would be a Skype call just to get them on the video. I know a lot of people use StreamYard for their live videos. Unfortunately, that won't work here with our setup. We use Restream, and so we would probably have to modify our setup. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But just stay tuned for that. We're working on, I'll just call it something big. Something I'm excited about. So, Trevor, I appreciate it. We try to have fun and entertain you guys as best as we can. Again, as far as our giveaways go, I'll mention those again real quick. We're going to do t-shirt giveaways once we hit 500 follows on Twitter and once we hit 300 subscribers on YouTube. Those are going to be independent of each other. We're also going to do our next belt giveaway once we hit 3,000 Facebook likes. So I think we're a little over 2,050, so got a ways to go in that regard, but we'll get there. I'm confident. I mean, we got to over 2,000 in just 3.5 months, which is insane. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. On Thursday's show, who knows, we might recap AEW and WWE. I'd like to talk more about this, comparing wrestlers and comparing talent, so we might cover that some more as well. I know we've got another Dark Side of the Ring tomorrow night. We might talk about that. And if you guys ever have suggestions for what we should talk about or what you'd like for us to talk about, send us a private message anytime. Cole, final thoughts?
All I'm saying is when we get Mark on the show, I'm cutting a promo against him ahead of time.
Oh, geez. Dusty says, dang, missed all the good stuff. Had to travel the Omniverse in search of a new dog bed for my fur babies. Yeah, we're wrapping up the show, but like I've said, you guys can go back and watch or listen to any of these on Facebook and YouTube. I did mention that Apple and Google Podcasts were a little behind on getting those uploaded with the coronavirus, but if you do want something that's more recent, Facebook or YouTube is going to be your best bet. So, again, thanks for hanging out with us today. For Cole, for Alex, myself, we will be back here on Thursday, and we're live every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, and we'll see you then.
And so, goodbye, mwah, and good night, bang!
This podcast was a presentation of LightUpMedia.fm.